Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 502 of Ink in Your Veins. I'm Rachael Herron, and today I am so happy that I am here with Rachel May and Emily Golden, and we are talking about there being no rules. I was on their show a while back. We talked about that, and they're just the most delightful people, and we could talk all day. You're going to love the interview that is coming up. So stick around for that. What has been going on around here? I don't know, y'all. I feel like I have cracked a code, and I feel like the code might just be, not being sick anymore. But it's bigger than that. I keep talking about it on the show a little bit, like I'm alluding to it, but I am getting stuff done, and I'm getting stuff done more easily than normal because I have somehow figured out how to give myself the grace and the kindness that I always try to, but then fail to. I have been getting relaxing done. I've been getting swimming done and a tiny bit of gardening and hiking in the hill that is just behind my house. There is a trailhead at the end of my block, less than a 3-minute walk from my front door to where I'm in the woods next to a creek. And then you could hike those hills for hours and hours and hours, or you could hike 30 minutes up and see the harbor, and another 10 or 15 minutes up to the very top of the hill. And I have been on that trail like 5 times, and I've lived here for 2 years. So I've been going hiking. I've been getting out. I've been patient with myself. And I think a lot of it has been, I'm just trying to like analyze how this has been working, but I have been doing more time blocking than I normally do. I think I generally like to pants my way through a day. That's what I enjoy doing. But I also like having a rough plan. And I'm thinking about chunks of time right now. I'm trying to have 3 episodes of deep focus during a work day. The first episode is the first hour or so is working on the book that I'm drafting, just having fun with. And then the second block is 2 to 3 hours of doing something on a writing project, whatever that is that day. And then the afternoon chunk of 2 hours is moving a project further forward. In and around all that is email and podcasting, and teaching counts as a chunk on the day. That counts as a deep work spot. But it sounds on the outside like that would be stressful to do, but it's adding more ease because if I only have these 3 things to do on a day, plus all the little things that I should probably do, what it means is that when I stand up, I can see that I have accomplished something, and I stand up and walk away a lot more easily. I don't know. It's been working. It's been working really well. I am analyzing, I am thinking, and I am really enjoying. So I don't have too much of an update. I'm going to be sending out a big old newsletter because I've decided I want to do more newsletter writing and talking to you who are on my mailing list. And I'm going to start sending out a newsletter to both readers and writers, just in almost the old-fashioned blogging, chatting style, because I love the emails that I get that tell me about what someone is doing. I love reading the chatty, conversational, sitting with a friend kind of email. I save those emails to read later, and then I really, really dive into them when I'm in the bath or in the bed. And I want to be one of those emails to people. I want to have that kind of conversation. So that'll be coming out today or tomorrow. And if you're not on my list, rachelherron.com/write. I would love to have you. And with that, I think I'm just going to roll sweet and easy over into the interview. Let me tell you about Emily and Rachel. Emily Golden and Rachel May are the founders of Golden May. Their joint love of amazing stories and mutual fascination with writing craft evolved into a book coaching business devoted to helping tenacious writers develop the unique writing craft process and mindset that works for them because every writer is different. If you're ready to stop fighting with what your writing life should look like and start dreaming about what's possible for you, they're the coaches for you. And there is a link in the show notes to their workshop that is coming up very shortly. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and hit that link. And here we go into the interview. I know you will enjoy it. Here we go. Well, I am so pleased to welcome you both to this show. Can you please share your names and pronouns with us, and I'll let you decide who goes first.
Uh, go.
We're good at this. We're good at not talking over each other. I'm Rachel May. She, her pronouns.
Thank you.
I'm Emily Golden, also she, her pronouns.
Thank you. I'm so excited that you're on the show. I was on your beautiful podcast, which is called Story Magic. And if anybody wants to listen to people who are of a kindred spirit to me and us, and please go, you can use my episode over there as an entry point to their podcast, but they do a beautiful job. And it has just taken like scheduling so long to get me on their show and then so long to get them here. And so I'm so thrilled. And that's why I sound like crap because I'm doing this with a cold anyway. Uh, but both of you, so I don't even like know where to launch this question. Can I get a little bit from each of you about your writing process? First of all, we should say that you are the founders of this editing and book coaching business. You run this podcast together. I guess what's your meet cute? That's what I want to know first.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
Twitter,
We
back in
met
the
on
good
Twitter.
Oh, back in hashtag am writing on Twitter.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
100%. 2018, the golden
Yeah.
days of
The
Twitter.
golden
Um,
Yes.
yeah, we met in a critique partner thread.
Yeah.
And so we were critique partners for about a year, and then we, became friends as you do when you're
Yeah.
sharing work with
Yeah.
somebody. And we were like, hey, we like nerding out about stories and we hate our jobs.
We
Let's
should just
start
do
a
this.
business.
Oh my gosh. And how far away from each other do you live?
Well, now this is funny. So when I used to live in Phoenix, and Emily lived in Colorado, still does. And so we that was where we were, Phoenix, Arizona, and Colorado. And then I moved to Colorado, but we live in opposite sides of Colorado. So
Uh,
I live in the Denver area,
uh-huh.
and Emily lives in Durango.
And
So we are in
there's
like,
such different places. I used to live in Fort Collins, and that's like
oh yeah,
it's nowhere near Durango.
No,
But
no.
not even close. I think we might have been closer when she was in Phoenix.
Yeah,
Probably not, but
there was one time when for a period of time after COVID, my husband and I sold our house in Phoenix and we moved to northern Arizona. And we actually lived closer to one another then than we do now
that
in the
is
same state.
so funny. And then so you've been friends for so that was 2018. So
Yeah.
now 7 years.
Oh my
Isn't
gosh.
that wonderful? Okay, and I
it's
actually
crazy.
now I do
Yeah.
I now that makes me think of how I do know how to kick off this conversation about process. I want to know about your process. But I was looking at your website and glancing at your bios, and I think it was on the tenacious writer part of it, where Emily, you said something really interesting in there about how you were writing hard and writing fast, and then you crashed and burned
hmm
because you felt like you needed to be the most productive person. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like and how that has changed your process?
Oh gosh. I'm a go hard burnout kind of person. And so I was thinking about it when I was prepping for this. I feel like that the difference is that I've started to notice, like I have learned how to recognize when my energy is like starting to peter out, right? And
Hmm.
so I can catch myself before I reach that point, and then I'm able to like take a break and like make myself stop even when I don't want to. So I kind of build in because I also have the business, right? So I'm working my books. I'm also doing the business. So like right now, I'm in a break period for writing, and I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
all the business stuff, like all the life stuff, I'm gonna do a bunch of other things, and give myself that creative space to like refill the well, just take a step
Uh-huh.
away from the story. So I kind of do these spurts.
I
That's
think
that's
that's,
my pace.
and I think understanding that about yourself, if you are that kind of burn hot and then rest hard kind of person, is really important to know. And because I am that person, I write hard and fast and then I don't write for sometimes months.
Yeah,
Um, because it is kind of anathema to all of the traditional advice, write every day
yeah,
that's out there. So, and what I liked about that being in your bio is that it just feels to me like a much more compassionate place to come toward writing, would you
yeah.
say?
Yeah. I mean, towards myself, I think,
Yeah.
right? Because for a long time, right, when you're coming at writing from a hustle culture mindset and you're like, I need to produce, I need to, reach my goals, I need to, I'm an ambitious person, I want to do all the
Hmm.
things. it's really hard for me to step back. Like it's not easy for me to be like, okay, I'm going to set this aside for a day, a weekend, a week, a month.
Hmm.
It's actually very difficult for me. And so I've had to learn through kind of proving to myself that breaks are actually good and
Mm.
healthy, that
Hmm.
even if I don't want to stop, like it's good for me and for the story and for writing and my relationship with writing, for everybody involved, if I do
And
that.
something important that you just said is that you prove to yourself, and that is we're allowed to
Yeah.
do that. We're allowed to give ourselves tests and say, I
Yeah.
am going to take 2 weeks off, even though I'm miserable and I should just keep hitting my head against the board and see how I feel in 2 weeks. And then we come back in 2 weeks and like, oh yeah, no, this is easier now. Then you have just
Yeah.
proved it to yourself that that might be part of your process.
Yeah.
Rachel, what about you? What
Yeah.
does your process look like?
Um, well, I am process wise, I'm a pantser, and I think like the way that makes me show up to the page is that I used to rely like really heavily on needing like the inspiration of like I've got to be in the right mood. I've got to be like everything's got to be ideal and optimal, and then I'll write until I can't, and then have like these really long periods of not doing anything and feeling really guilty about it. And then now I've built like a lot of writing endurance and
Mm,
I think of it very much like you can't expect yourself to be writing for a long time, large amounts when you first start because
hmm.
it's a
Or even
muscle.
later
It's a
on.
sk- even later on.
It's
Yeah,
deep
like
work, right? And
it's
we
deep
can't do it
work.
for 8 hours a day.
No, and it requires rest, like we just said,
Hmm.
like it requires refilling the well. So I like show up and I just feel like I get into it and I have to get into the flow and I write usually at night. So my process is
Oh,
like,
you're a night writer.
yes,
There are so
Hmm.
few of you. You are in the minority.
I just can't. I think it started that way. Well, I'm a total night owl for sure. I would if I could live on a night shift, that I would. I would never wake up during the day. I just would only be awake at night. But that's impossible. So for me, I can't do that. I think it started with like I had to have everything in my life done before I had permission to write, and that
Hmm.
worked really well with
Hmm.
my night owl tendencies.
Hmm.
But then I really let go of that. I'm like, I can write whenever I want, but I like writing at night.
Hmm.
As soon as my daughter goes to bed, as soon as I take my contacts out, I get like this little burst of energy and I can just like sit
Mm.
in my bed and just type away and
That's
be
gorgeous.
awake. Yeah.
What I
So I,
what I love about that too is that you are doing it because the problem comes with I see a lot of people say, I am a night writer, I'm a night owl, and I have to get the stuff done before I write, and then they don't write at night.
yeah.
So some people, and it could be very true that they are night owls and they could write really well at night, but because because they're not doing it, it means it's not their process right now. They need to try other things. But
Yeah.
if you know it and you're doing it, then it is your process.
Yeah. And I think like we were just talking about it, it's all an experiment and you have to
Yeah.
prove like what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, I really wanted to be a morning writer because Emily's a morning writer.
We're
Everybody's a
opposites in
morning
like
writer.
every way.
Yes, we really are. Emily's like when we first met on Twitter and like there's the 5 a.m. writer club and I'm like doing my best to get up because everybody's doing it and everybody's tweeting how much they're doing. And I'm like, this is hell. Why are we here? Go to bed. So like I tried and it never worked.
Yes.
But then when I like kind of figured out my relationship with my mindset, I was like, I could try again. Let me see. Because what was it that was really, was it like my energy? Was it perfectionism? Was it, feeling some societal need to perform? It just felt so performative for me to like be up
Hmm.
at that time. So I was like, let me see if I'm a morning writer. No,
That's
nope.
awesome.
I just don't feel the same. I don't feel the same. I can. There are days where I get up and I like write, if it's a Saturday morning and my daughter's eating breakfast and I feel like, oh, let me write some time in. Great. But that's just not, I found like what works for my body.
Hmm.
And that took experimenting. And then also like embracing that's what works for me. So how can I like shift some other things
And
like
we can
around?
and we can keep experimenting forever.
Yes.
That's the thing I like
Yeah.
about writing.
Forever.
It's
Forever and
different for
ever.
every book and
It's
every part of the process. Like sometimes I work better in the morning, sometimes at night, sometimes it's like in random spurts during the day. It just kind of depends on where I am in the process, how the book's coming out of me, like what.
Yeah. I know my first drafts are definitely morning as early as possible, and then afternoons are ideal for me for revision, and nights are
Yes,
never. Nights are never. Nights
I'm
like
very,
after 6
unless I'm
p.m.
obsessing, then maybe.
I don't even know if I can still be obsessing and be like, I'm not walking in that office. No,
I'm
absolutely.
impressed. I'm impressed.
Absolutely not a refuse. What okay, I'll put this to you, Rachel. What's the most exciting thing you've ever realized about your writing process?
Um, I mean, it just goes back to that trust, which is like I can do whatever I want. Like
Mm.
there are no rules. Emily and I have this is our vibe currently, is like it's so unserious. Like it just I can do whatever I want. And like I think that's really freeing and like really
Yeah.
exciting because there are so many narratives about the rules of what it means to be a writer. And
Yeah.
like I can do whatever I want.
And we come to this gig like looking for rules, right? Sometimes the times that horrify me the most as a writing teacher are when a student will come back to me and say, well, Rachel, you said I should do it this way, and it's just not working for me. And I'm like, did I say should? Because if I
Yeah,
said
right.
should, I'm taking that back. But what I've learned has happened is that usually I'm saying like, well, this is something you could try, or you
Yeah.
could try this. But they hear that because we're all looking for rules, when we first come
Yes.
in, and they hear that as I did say, no, that's the way it should be, and you should do it that way. And it's horrific. No, there are no rules.
Yeah. There's no
There are
rules.
certain guidelines. Like I guess there's one rule you have to write. You have to write in order to write a book. That's it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to like get words on the page, but it can happen literally any way,
Yep.
shape, or form.
Yep.
Like for
Yeah.
a while, I was writing on my phone while breastfeeding. Cool. Like what?
Yes.
It just there. It could be anything, and I think that is really exciting and that's really freeing because
Hmm.
what does that mean for you? And I think it can be so fun. And I think people think of it as like I've got to slave away on my computer to
It's
Yeah.
got to be
like
horrible and hard. Yeah.
actually it's
There's
allowed
either
to be
like
fun.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
There's either like people think that there's one way, like one best way to do it, or once they realize that's not true, then they're like, okay, well, there's one best way for me to do it. And it's all just like a procrastination of putting the damn words on the page. Because like you can actually
Yes.
write
Yes.
words on something anywhere at any time
Yeah,
for a
Yes.
minute, for
anything.
10 minutes. And so I think we think we want to believe that if we can find the process that works the best for us, then like we'll never be uncomfortable
Yeah,
or
all
Hmm.
like
our
the words
problems will
will
go away.
always flow or it will come out perfectly. And it's just not true. It's just
It's
not
never going to
true.
happen. It's never ever
No.
going to happen. Emily, what about you? What's the most exciting thing that you've ever learned
It's
about your
funny because
process?
really that you could experiment with it. Like so kind of opposites of Rachel, but the same exact thing. I always felt like if I didn't get words in before 7 a.m., then like the whole day was wasted. So if I
Yeah.
slept
Yeah.
in, God forbid, I was
Yeah.
never going to write that day. And that I think
Yeah.
came from starting to write while I had a day job, starting to write, like continuing to write while I had a day job and was starting a business, right? It's like I got to a certain point in the day and then I just got swept up in other things. And so I had
Hmm.
this fear that that meant I couldn't write. And it's just not true. And so learning that I could experiment with my process just took so much weight off my shoulders to like do
Mm.
it in a certain way. And allowed me to be like, okay, well, that didn't, the ideal situation didn't pan out today, but like what else can I salvage? Um,
Hmm.
so yeah.
It's been going, and it's again going back and being compassionate toward the writer self, as
Yes.
you said earlier. That's perfect. What part, Emily, of the writing struggle, of the writing process do you struggle with the most? Of the writing struggle,
Oh gosh,
It's all struggle.
the writing struggle,
the
the
writing
whole thing is
struggle.
a
The
What
struggle.
part
writing
do you?
struggle.
Which part of the struggle is the most challenging?
Struggling.
Gosh, what do I struggle with the most? I think for me, lately, it's been plotting
Yeah,
because
Whoa,
that's
wait,
okay,
that's
surprise.
always my
what I
biggest one.
mean by that, I'm a plotter. To be clear, I'm a plotter. What I mean by plotting is like coming up with like the major plot points and like plot twists and like agents, like the big moments that drive a reader to turn the pages. Because my critique partner is very good at this, which is fantastic because she helps me like brainstorm stuff and she helps me pull out of it because I see everything.
Hmm.
I'm the kind of writer that like I see every tree in the forest. I see like everything that's going on in every person's brain. So it's really hard for me when I'm talking about plotting, it's really hard for me to pull out of those like the deep new nuanced details of the story and see like that book that readers are going to
Hmm.
read
Hmm.
and figure out the most like exciting way to write it. So like that's kind of my challenge. So I lean on other people a lot to help me kind of
Mm.
pull it out and be like, where am I getting boring? Do we need these details? Why does it matter?
Because the details are so
Um,
wonderful and delicious, and we want to be
yeah.
down there in the weeds. I love being in the weeds. Yeah, that's it. How about you, Rachel?
I am not a fan of revising my work.
Yeah.
I am a book coach. I am an editor. Like, I love doing it. I'm a drafter, and like, it's so much fun for me to draft. And I feel like I could write thousands and thousands and thousands of words with like never stopping ever. But,
That is my idea of hell.
um,
That is all I
no,
want to do is
Same.
revise.
that is like, I'm like lit up when I'm drafting. I'm just so into it, and I love coming up with these crazy ideas and writing them down. But as soon as like it's done and I have to look back at it and go like, ooh, it's just not as fulfilling. It's like not as sparky. You know, like when you get
Hmm.
like that spark, like this is what I meant to do, like I meant to draft. So
Yeah.
revising is not my favorite part, but I will say that revising my second book was easier than my first.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that for my third book. I think it's gonna be terrible. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, you never know. I have seen
Yeah.
some diehard drafters fall in love with revision around book 3 or 4, and then also still love drafting, which I think is the ideal place to be. Like if you can both
Yeah.
like love drafting and revision, you are the golden child.
You're the lucky
The
one.
unicorn. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about some writing craft tips. To throw some at me. Anything that you found helpful in your writing. We'll go whichever one of you wants to start.
I'll start for a second. I think like uh so being a pantser, I had always such a hard time like translating like all of the craft tools or tips or like instruction into my work
Hmm.
because it just felt like they weren't made for me. Like,
Interesting. I love this.
yeah,
Yeah,
I always felt like writing craft was for plotters. And
definitely.
like,
You're told how
you
to
know,
do it. Here's the right quote unquote way.
yeah, here,
Plan to
do
do
this
this.
outline,
Right.
outline this way. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, I will burn that outline to the ground. Like, no, I'm never gonna do it. And I had the hardest time, like, I understood the concepts, but it just really never translated for me until we started to do a lot of our work in character arcs and then tying character arcs and plot into scene structure. So
Ooh.
this is the tip. Um, like we just did a whole workshop on scene structure, and I think that was incredibly transformative to me the first time that I learned how to do it because like there's craft theory of like a character arc is about change and plot is what happens to our characters and our characters need to influence the plot, but like how? And then when we learned how to do scene structure of like your character needs a goal, there need to be complications to that goal, like things don't go according to how they expect, and then they have to make a choice, and their choice is flawed, and then that flawed choice sets up consequences, which are the plot. Like when all those things got tied together for me, I was like, this is
Ooh.
how I can pants because I don't need to plot when I know scene structure. Like I know,
Interesting. You had
yeah,
an internal knowledge because a lot of us have this internal knowledge that we don't even know we have. We don't even know it exists, but we've somehow gotten it over the years. And then we just use it and we can't explain it. But now you have the words for that. You were already setting up choice, consequence,
yes.
conflict,
Yeah. So I like
moving into the
never
next.
plot. I never
Right.
plot. I rarely sketch out my scenes ahead of time. Sometimes I do if I'm feeling like really stuck. And
Yeah.
then I'll like try to, plot out my scenes ahead of time. But most of the time I'm just drafting and knowing, okay, this character needs a goal and like they're not going to get this goal. It's going to get worse. And we're going to lead up to like a a climax part of this scene and what's their choice going to be. And that's going to be a bad choice. And how's that going to make a lot of problems? And
I
that's
love that.
how I draft. So yeah, that was like a really big. I don't know if that's actually like a tip. You should do that, but like I think learning what works for you in like the implementation to connect the big picture theory to like this small picture page.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of ways that you could do that, and the way that I did that was through scene structure.
I
And it
know
just
that you
unlocked.
I know that you just blew some listeners' minds who have never thought
Yeah.
about it in those words, so that's
Yeah.
perfect. What
Yeah.
about you, Emily?
Oh, there's so many. Okay, well, Rachel didn't steal
I
one of
stole
mine, but
yours.
no, you didn't, because I don't write that way. But I want to talk about something different. So, okay, so something that has been invaluable to me was when Rachel and I, so when we first started working as critique partners, and then we got real nerdy about it. We started reading craft books together. And so we read Story Genius by Lisa Cron
Hmm.
together.
Fabulous book.
And a lot of what she talks about, fantastic book. A lot of what she talks about in that book informs like a lot of the teachings that we do, and especially the character arc part of the, the plot and character equation that Rachel was just
Hmm.
talking about. And one of the most powerful tools that I continue to use all of the time is backstory writing. And the piece that kind of blew my mind early on was that backstory is not just, like everything that's ever happened to your character. It's not just like the biggest emotional moments in their lives. It's what she talks about in that book is that it's the moments you want to explore, the moments in which their flaw that they're going to untangle and unlearn and go through and
Hmm.
confront during your story, the moments when that flaw came to be. And so
I've read the book
that
and I don't remember that part. That's really, really smart.
yeah, yeah. So she calls it a misbelief. We call it an internal obstacle.
Hmm.
Everybody has a different name for the lie, whatever. It's the
Right.
thing that your character believes about themselves, about how the world works, that they need to unlearn in order to like, go through their character arc. And so the backstory scenes that we teach are always kind of built around like when did that first come to be and how did it
Yeah.
develop through their lives, how did that belief kind of ingrain in their lives, what choices did they make because of that belief that have had ripple effects that have set up who they are and their problems on page one.
Hmm.
So I use backstory all the time. I write a lot of backstory for my characters just because that I found is the most effective and efficient way for me to really get into their experience. So
Yeah.
I'll write it for different characters, including like my villains and people that I need to understand deeply.
Do you like to do full flashbacks or are you dribbling in some backstory through their
In the story
brains as they're,
itself,
yeah.
I'll do both. So my series Behind the Crimson Curtain has dual timelines.
Mhm.
So I actually got to put a lot of those
Yeah.
scenes in the timelines, but the timeline exists for more reasons than just for plot reasons, not just
Yeah.
to put their backstory in, just to be clear. And then for my current story, I'm not including it, so it's all just kind of through their thoughts. You can use what's happening in the present moment to trigger memories, right? we're
Hmm.
always we're always making sense of what's happening around us by calling on things that have happened to us in the past, to predict what might happen next or understand how we're feeling or the memories that pop up. So you can weave in a lot of backstory that way, so I'll use it that way as well.
That's so smart. And I love that. I think that, a lot of us talk about, that primary wound
Yeah.
that the character
Yeah,
had. And we look at I think sometimes I get frustrated by looking at the wound so much. And this just reminds me that it's not that interesting to look at the wound. What we're doing is we're looking at that lie, that misbelief that came
yeah,
about because of the wound.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's also huge. You guys are giving some really good tips here. Thank you very much. May I ask either of you, what is the kindest thing you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
Oh, man.
I could start with this, and I got a
Yeah.
quick answer because I struggled to answer this one because I mean, writing retreats, spending money on myself. But
One of the most
I
fun
honestly
ways.
think, yeah, I honestly think the kindest thing I ever did for myself as a writer was setting a book aside, was
Ooh.
shelving Undesired Thrones,
Yeah.
Wow.
because that book was really driving me crazy.
Hmm.
And it was, feeling all the inner critic voices, and it was not an easy decision to put it aside. Will I write? I don't know if I'll ever pick it up again. I'd still
Hmm.
love that story, but the further I get from it, the more I'm like, I don't know. I've got other ideas. So, so it was a grieving process. It's still a grieving process, but I do think I set it aside several years ago, and it opened up my ability to look at my mindset issues. It opened up my ability to work on new projects that eventually became my debut and things like that. So
That is
difficult choice, but I think it was kind.
it's a difficult choice, but I love the way you just said it. And if it's resonating with any listeners out there, pay attention to that. I also
Yeah.
shelved a book about three or 4 years ago. I think I wrote it in Oakland just before we moved to New Zealand, so it would have been like almost 5 years ago. And I did the same thing. I just decided it's not for now. I need to set it to the side. And I just realized the other day that I'm rewriting some of the same tropes and ideas
Mhm.
in the book I'm writing now that I'm so excited about. So I'm cannibalizing it a little bit. In no
Yeah.
way really cannibalizing, but it feels good. for parts of
Yeah,
it to be coming
that's
to life. And
great.
that is a wonderfully kind thing that people don't talk about. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Rachel,
Yeah.
how about you?
I think the kindest thing that I did for myself was like spend a lot of time and effort on my mindset and like specifically working through perfectionism and
Mm,
like confronting a lot of really challenging beliefs I had about myself that did not feel good,
hmm
and like therapy and like why am I like this? And like
hmm
all that stuff that's really easy to shy away from and that's like really icky to feel.
hmm
Um, we've spent a lot of time diving into mindset and like really confronting my perfectionism unlocked the ability to draft and like unlocked my decision to self-publish and like unlocked my belief in myself and in my book and in like the book series that I'm publishing now. Like I just feel like that was hard. And I'm
hmm
really glad that like we put so much emphasis on like the writing is not separate from what's going on in your head. So if
hmm
what's going on in your head is causing the blocks, like the kindest thing you can do is like realize what's going on in your head and untangle it and like come find the
Yeah.
truth versus like the inner critic lie, the narratives
Yeah.
that are causing all the because it's like really not it doesn't have to be the way that sometimes our brain makes us feel.
Yeah.
It most of the
Um,
time doesn't. My brain makes me
most of the
feel
time.
my brain is always lying to me.
Yeah.
So it's that I really think it's compelling that you're talking about untangling it because it is not for me anyway. It's not a realization that I have as a process as the result of doing a little bit of work. I have a realization and everything is fixed. It is ongoing work that I'm probably always
Yeah.
going to be
Oh yeah.
doing. And I'm sure that you have a tool bag as big as a house. But what has been maybe a tool that has been invaluable to you in working through perfectionism?
Um, weirdly to say, it's like to share my work a lot more than I used to, but to
Mm,
also come at it with like, this is what I want from this feedback. Like,
yes.
so one thing that I'm doing right now, I'm drafting my third book, and it's been really challenging because, as I was telling you before we got started, the whole first part of this year has just been a real big mess with like sickness and illness and like as soon as I feel like I was coming out of being sick, we were hit with another illness, and I really wanted to finish like the first draft of my book three by the middle of February, and
hmm
very early that was like that's not happening.
hmm
And I some of it was like plot related, but that gets tied into our lives. So there's just a lot of factors. But one thing that I did was like I can't just silo myself because I really thrive on like the encouragement and the praise of other people. So I sent out my pages, which are a hot mess, to three different people. Emily's one of them, to a couple other people, and I was like, I'm not looking for any criticisms. I
Yes.
only want
Yes.
praise. Please praise me and tell me how beautiful and wonderful this is. I know it's a hot mess. I'm going to fix it all later, but right now the only thing that I need is like for you to tell me how much you like it because that
Huge.
motivates me to keep going.
Huge.
And like that really helps my perfectionism
hmm
because in the moment, like I already know what the problems are with that draft. And if someone were to like give me feedback to call them out, like I can feel my body having a physical reaction to that to be
hmm
like, no, 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 I'm gonna fix like I just get immediately defensive and then I don't want to do it. And
hmm
so I have become really aware of like when I'm feeling that like tension arise and being like, just just tell me what you like.
That's beautiful. And we
I'm
are
gonna keep going.
allowed to ask
Yeah.
for that. We're even allowed to ask for it from the paid editors that we hire. We can
Yeah.
say,
Yes.
I would like all of your advice, but I need it couched in really positive, praising ways. And I would like
Mhm.
for everything that you suggest, can you give me two compliments to balance it out? We get to ask for what we want when we need it. And that is beautiful. I could see I could see whole critique groups going for dozens of years using just that model in order to get work done, sharing
Yes.
work
Yeah.
with only
Yeah.
praise to come. Yeah.
It's like life changing. I mean, I used to like give my stuff to Emily and be like, tell me everything that's wrong with it. And then like just be devastated. Not because of Emily, but because like sometimes that's really demoralizing.
hmm
Sometimes that's really helpful and like
hmm
really engaging. And I know myself right now that would interrupt. And I
We are
don't
the
need
only ones who know
anything
what we
more.
need.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so good. That's so good. All right. Let's see. Tell us, I think we have time for this. Would you tell us, please, each of you, about a specific moment that you knew you had ink in your veins?
Oh, yeah, I can start with this one. I used to write when I was a kid. As a teenager, I was like, I'm gonna be the next, what's his name? Christopher Paolini. Um,
Love it.
and so, but then I stopped and I got into environmental justice work, and I sort of there's like a vibe in that work sometimes that like everybody is martyring themselves and their lives and all of their time
Yeah,
to do this work for very little pay,
yeah.
because you're lucky enough to be able to be paid to do this, to work for the right thing. Anyway, that's a whole separate thing, but I was kind of at this point in my life where the work that I was working on wasn't going great, and I was just like really struggling, and I was like, something's missing in my life. And so my friend of mine bought me The Artist Way, and I was doing
Mm,
The Artist Way. And then I also was listening to, so had been thinking about, oh, well, I could maybe go back to, pick up fantasy writing again. How frivolous and what a waste of time. Like those are the voices
mm-hmm.
that were in my brain. And so I hadn't actually done it. I was like halfway through The Artist, like weeks into The Artist Way, and I hadn't written a word. And I was listening to a podcast by Elizabeth Gilbert. Um, and she was talking to this
Is it the
woman.
Big Magic podcast?
Big
Yeah.
Magic. She was
Yeah.
talking to this woman about who was a Holocaust researcher. I don't know
Mhm.
if you remember
I
that
remember,
episode,
yeah.
but anyway, she basically gave this woman who was having a similar struggle, she was like, "You are allowed to feel joy." I was just like burst into tears. And like the whole podcast episode is like you have to embrace joy. You have to like embrace your creativity in order to serve the world. Because if you're burnt
Yes.
out and depressed, then that doesn't help anybody. I think this woman wanted to be a comedian. Anyway, long story short is I burst into tears like I just want to be a writer. And
Oh,
that's when I
that's
started writing. I finally was like,
gorgeous.
it's not frivolous. Yeah,
Oh, I love that. I wonder how many Liz Gilbert stories there are like that, of all the lives she has changed by doing things like that. That's
I
amazing.
know, right?
Thank you. And look at you now. This is what you're doing
I know. It's
and changing
crazy.
the world. Rachel, how about you? When did you
Um,
know that you had ink in your veins?
when I read the first fantasy book I'd ever read, which I was in middle grade,
Uh-huh.
and my brother had always been like the reader of the family. My brother is like a voracious reader and always has been. And my parents would try to get me into reading, and it just was like not for me. Like Nancy Drew, lots of, and those are great, but they never like, claws in my heart until I read
Hmm.
my first fantasy, and then I was like, people can do this, like what? And I was like, I have to write like that. So I still have like my first little journal. I think it's over there. Like my first little journal that I don't know, I maybe bought at like an art show, like a farmer's market or something, and I like wrote a silly little chapter of like this princess, like just
Yeah.
so middle grade fantasy. And I was like, this is what I want to do at forever. And I just haven't
Oh.
really stopped since then. Yeah.
Oh, that is beautiful. It was just your baby id coming out on the page, and
Yes.
you're still doing that. That is
Yeah.
gorgeous. Would either of you like to recommend a book that you have loved recently?
Yes.
Ooh,
I
yes.
thought about this and I had it on my Goodreads and I'm gonna have to look it up again.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go first.
You go first.
I just read The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi.
Oh my God.
And
Isn't it the most
I
freaking fun you ever had?
it's so funny. It was such a weird ride reading it
Such a
because
weird
I
ride.
had been I had been reading murder mystery thrillers to like study for the book that I'm writing. And then a friend of mine and I are in a we call it a book club, but it's just the two of us. And so we chose this book to read. And it is not that. It is like this sprawling epic adventure, right? So it's like
Of a
slower paced,
middle-aged
very
female
immersive.
sailor.
Yeah. And so I it took me a while to get into it because it wasn't the book, it was me. Like I just wasn't in that space. And so it took me a while to sink into it. And then once it swept me away like a third of the way through, I was like, this is a Jade City Way of Kings kind of like
Yeah.
adventure And it was so fun, and I can't stop thinking about how much I loved it.
It's called The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi and
Yeah.
highly, highly, highly recommended. Yeah, I don't remember many books, and that one I just have whole scenes still
Just and it's so
lodged.
Clever. The
The
research that she did and
yeah,
the oh, it's just
yeah.
it's so good. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Rachel, how about you?
with that. I have two, sorry, but the
Yay.
first one, the first one is a book I read recently and we actually used in the scene workshop. It's called Gold Digger
Ooh.
by Susie Tate. And it's an indie published book. Susie Tate is like the queen of contemporary romance with like a billionaire guy and
Uh-huh.
like a poor downtrodden girl, and then there's like tons of grovel because the guys are always just the worst and they have to like grovel to get these incredible women. So she's the queen of that. So I read Gold Digger in one sitting at night, and like
Wow.
it was like I
She
was
does
like,
that a
just
lot.
I do this a lot. This is why I'm a night owl. Is like I'll start
Uh,
a book at 10 p.m. and then be like,
oh, that
I'm
must be
gonna keep
so
going.
fun. That
And
must
then
be
I
so fun.
finished it at like 1:45 and I was like, this is my life.
Oh,
Can't put it
that's
down. It's
awesome.
fun, but it's also called ADHD. So
Yeah,
like
yep.
could not, I was very hyper focused into that. So Gold Digger was like incredible, and Susie Tate has a huge indie published backlist, and then she actually just got picked up to publish this series traditional.
Oh, awesome.
So it's gonna be, you'll find it around. I'm sure it'll be an incredible book. And then this is my second. At the beginning of the year, when I was incredibly ill, I read this series called The Ironside Academy, and
Ooh.
it's like a why choose fantasy.
Uh-huh.
I was really into like bully and grovel, I guess,
Uh-huh.
because another like starts out bully romance and then it's kind of a grovel.
I love the
Not too
motion from
much.
bully to gravel. Yeah.
Yes, not too much. But anyway, I read Ironside Academy, and there's 5 books out, and I read them one a day, and this was like 5 days. This is my life, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. And like that
Oh.
was the first week of January, and it's early April now. Um,
Oh, that's
I
wonderful.
cannot promise that if you read these books that they are like craft forward, that they are
No, no,
incredible
here's the thing is
studies.
they did their job.
They
They
did
took
their
you out
job.
of a difficult situation and put you
Yeah.
into a better situation and kept you there. And that is their job. They're exactly doing what they should be doing.
Yes, and this
Yes.
Yep.
series is like incredible. And so I write Why Choose. I think we've talked
Hmm.
about it, but for anyone
Yeah.
who's unfamiliar, Why Choose is one girl with multiple romantic partners. There are 10 in this
Oh,
book.
oh my gosh.
I did not think it would work. I read it on a recommendation from a friend. I was like, there's no way these books can be good. And then I'm like, give me more. Like I can't stop.
I will
They're
have to try one.
so they've just got like everything that you want to like hook you into a book.
Oh.
And the 6th one is coming out in June, and I'm counting down the days.
I got it on pre-order. Gonna watch it land.
Yes.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for those. Um, can you tell us about what you do, where to find you? Give us all of that good
Yeah.
stuff. Tell us about how you work together. Tell us how you work separately. Maybe let's start there. Let's start first. Tell us what you do separately, what you write and where you can be found, and then we'll talk about the business.
Sure. So I write as E.B. Golden. My debut fantasy novel is out. It's called Behind the Crimson Curtain. You can find it
The gorgeous
anywhere
cover.
my Oh, thank you. The cover for the sequel is coming out soon. It's
Ooh,
almost done. So
ooh,
I'm really excited to share that. Yeah, it's a romantasy duology set in a Victorian inspired world. And you can find me on Instagram at EB Golden Books.
perfect. Rachel.
Awesome. I write Why Choose Mafia Romance.
Hmm.
And I am currently writing the Shadow Syndicate series, and the first 2 books are out, and the third book will come out later this fall.
Fabulous.
And it's about like a mafia princess on a quest for revenge, and then she like falls in love with a group of assassins who are obsessed with her, and it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
that sounds awesome. And you don't usually hear mafia princess for some reason. Or maybe you do. I'm not too in the world, but I really love that phrase.
It's a thing in mafia. It's like,
Ah,
if the Don is the king, then this is
okay, then she would
the
obviously be the
daughter. She's the
princess.
mafia princess. Yeah.
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 Amazing.
Um,
And tell us a little
so
bit. Oh yeah, go on.
oh, I just say you can find I write that under RE May.
Oh, okay.
So initials RE May.
Perfect. Will you tell us a little bit about Golden May?
Yeah, so Golden May is our book coaching and editing business. We each have a few one-on-one clients, but our star attraction is our tenacious writing community. It's a program, online program that has lots of craft, mindset, community resources. We have a Slack forum. We pair up critique groups. We teach people how to give good feedback, how to ask for good feedback. Um, and it is just the best place on the internet. We love it so much. I feel like I could say for both of us, it fuels our personal writing. These humans are just they're a bunch of humans who are trying to figure out how to write the stories that they love while also honoring their own uniqueness, their unique lives, brains, processes. We're all trying to figure out how to dismantle hustle culture together while
Yeah,
also learning writing craft. It's the best.
fabulous. And I believe you have some kind of workshop coming up.
We do. So in June, we have a free class. This is your invitation. Everybody's invited. And it's going to be about character arcs, and how they function and how we use the different pieces of our character, to form like the shape of their arc over the course of the story, basically. Like, how do you take what arcs are, and like at what point do characters undergo change? So it's going to be awesome. And we will have the link for that to register to come for free, in your show notes, I believe.
It'll be in the show notes. That's where it will be.
Yes. Yeah,
And
it will
it
be.
is always such a delight to talk to both of you. I'm sorry, what's the name? Where can they find Golden May? I bet you could just Google
Oh,
Golden May and it'll
Yeah.
come right up. But
Golden May, goldenmayediting.com. And then you can
perfect.
find us on Instagram at Tenacious Writing. That's our community page.
Perfect. Thank you both so much for doing this. You are both
Thank
such
you.
a delight, and I'm always visited by a burst of inspiration after talking to you or listening to you. You really have a gift for this. So thank
Thank you
You
you.
so much
too.
for having us.
Yeah,
You're
this is
so
so
welcome.
incredible. Thank you.